Welcome to The Mental Path. I'm Dr. Gretchen Gavero, a psychiatrist and therapist. I really enjoy combining psychology, medical knowledge, and personal growth tools to support my mental health. In this podcast, I'll share insights and skills I use to build resilience to keep you thinking and feeling better. There are many things you can do on your own to take care of your mental health, and I'm here to help you do that. Remember, there's always room for growth and improvement. Today, we're addressing a common struggle, overthinking negative thoughts. You're not alone in this. If you've ever stayed up all night replaying a situation or imagining all the ways something could go wrong, this episode is for you. We all have mental chatter, conversations within ourselves that sometimes cause us to overthink. This often leads to self-doubt and limits us from reaching our goals. Overthinking isn't a character flaw. It's your brain's built-in problem-solving system, just needing a bit more control and direction. The goal is not to shut it off, but to train it to work for you. The first step is to overcome and become aware of negative thoughts and learn to recenter, reframe, to avoid getting stuck in an unhelpful loop. In this episode, we're going to break down what's happening in your brain when you spiral into overthinking, why it leads to anxiety and inaction, and how to shift out of mental loops and into clarity, confidence, and calm. Let's dive in. What does overthinking sound like in your head? It can show up in different ways, like perfectionism, thinking, if it's not perfect, I'm a disappointment. It could be fear of failure, like telling yourself, if this doesn't work out, everyone will think I'm a fake. Or catastrophizing, saying, what if I make the wrong decision and ruin everything? Do you recognize any of these? I've had moments, especially in college, when my perfectionistic tendencies caused so much stress rather than work in my favor. Even early in my medical career, it showed whenever I was preparing a presentation or writing academic papers. I would obsess over whether my work was good enough, like one mistake could ruin everything, especially worried about what other people think about me. I didn't realize then that this wasn't me just being careful, it was my brain stuck in a loop. When we overthink or doubt ourselves, several parts of the brain are overworked. Let's look at what's happening. For example, the prefrontal cortex analyzes and in this case overanalyzes. The amygdala, our fear center, amplifies anxiety. The hippocampus brings up past memories and future worries that puts us in mental loops. We become stuck in negativity because the brain struggles to regulate our emotions. Specifically, overthinking activates the brain's default mode network, which we use to reflect or daydream. Some say it's the brain's autopilot mode. This is usually beneficial because it helps us process memories and visualize possibilities, which then helps us find solutions. When this part of the brain is dysregulated, it leads to overthinking. Our mind gets stuck in a loop, replaying and intensifying distressful thoughts. Sometimes it's even trying so hard to solve problems that don't even exist. We've all done that, worrying about a future outcome that hasn't happened or is unlikely to happen, like focusing on worst-case scenarios. Overthinking leads to self-doubt, procrastination, anxiety, and decision paralysis. That's the opposite of what you need to move forward. The brain defaults to overthinking the problem until you interrupt it, and you have to interrupt it before the loop grows bigger. Strategies like mindfulness and thought reframing, which come from cognitive behavioral therapy, help calm these areas so your brain can reset and move forward. Instead of letting your brain keep spinning the same anxious thoughts like, I'm not good enough, you might pause, challenge the thought, and reframe it. For example, instead of saying, I'm not good enough, you might say, well, I'm doing my best and I'll continue to learn and improve. Now let's talk about how to break the loop using a 4-step approach. Step 1, awareness. Notice when you're overthinking and spiraling. Pay attention to changes in your mood, behavior, or physical reactions. These are mood shifts, like feeling anxious, frustrated, or sad. Behavior shifts could be procrastinating or isolating, or it could be physical changes like having chest tightness, sweaty palms, or low energy. Step 2, pause and reset. Before you can think clearly, you have to calm your nervous system. Have your go-to calming strategy, like take 2 minutes to breathe deeply, ground yourself by engaging in all senses, or go outside for a short walk. Step 3, challenge the thought. Ask yourself these 3 questions. 1, what am I thinking right now? 2, what evidence do I have that this thought is true? 3, what evidence do I have that this thought is not true? Now, most people skip that last question, but that's one of the most crucial steps that prompts the change. Step 4, reframe the thought. Now that you've acknowledged evidence that challenges the negative thought and shows you that it's not 100% true, replace the original thought with a more balanced perspective. A common example is this. The original thought could be, I have imposter syndrome, I'm a fake. The balanced thought is, I am skilled at what I do and I've worked so hard to be where I am now. I've helped so many people doing what I'm passionate about. Again, the 4 steps are 1, awareness, 2, pause and reset, 3, challenge the thought, and 4, reframe. Here's a short personal story from my life to remind you that it's normal to have these experiences, and I hope it helps you feel more connected. When I became a first-time mom, I had this perfect vision, a healthy baby, smooth breastfeeding, bonding moments. But in just 2 weeks, I realized I wasn't producing enough breast milk. I tried supplements, read books, followed every tip I could read online at that time, but nothing really worked. The automatic thought I had at that time was, I'm failing as a mom. I felt guilty focusing on what wasn't working. But then I started challenging that thought because it wasn't really helping. It was just making me feel more down. I asked myself, what evidence tells me that the thought I'm failing as a mom is true? Well, the evidence is I couldn't breastfeed exclusively. Now, what's the evidence that this is not true? A lot. I loved my baby and he was healthy and happy even when I'm using formula for feeding. We were bonding beautifully and so on and so on. Reframing that thought shifted everything. Instead of feeling like a failure, I focused on what I was doing to care for my baby, and then I felt empowered instead of ashamed. So here's your challenge this week. When you notice a shift in your mood, behavior, or physical reactions, ask yourself, what am I thinking about? Then, just start with these steps. Step 1, write it down. Pick one repetitive thought that's been bothering you. Step 2, challenge it. Write down evidence for and against that thought. And step 3, reframe it. Replace it with a more balanced, empowering perspective. This process might feel cumbersome at first, but the more you practice, the faster it becomes. Eventually, it's like flipping a mental switch, like a superpower. You'll be able to run through this thought, challenging, and reframing technique within minutes. And it's there when you need it, anytime, anywhere. Now, I think that's really a super skill. Remember, you can break free from overthinking. It's your brain trying to protect you, and the goal is to retrain it so it helps you move forward instead of holding you back. So, what's one repetitive thought you're ready to reframe today? What would change if you stopped that self-doubt and trusted yourself just a little bit more because you're not overthinking anymore? Again, write down one repetitive thought and reframe it into a balanced perspective. Then, start noticing how this changes your experience for the better. Okay, let me know your thoughts, subscribe, and leave a review. It means so much. And if this episode helped you, share it with someone who needs it. And thank you for spending time with me today. The next episode is a January special, and it's all about motivation. I'll share some of my favorite habits and practices that help me stay driven. I follow many motivation and productivity thought leaders, and it's easy to be overwhelmed just figuring out how to apply all these awesome strategies. Next week, I'll show you how I put some of these practices together when I'm creating a goal review, like what I do for my New Year review. As you come up with your 2025 goals, you need the right mindset and motivation to support them. And I'm so excited to talk about this. I'll see you next week.